We are here with another Teacher of the Year profile. We're talking to Sandy Glaeser, who is one of 2 Teachers of the Year from the Elk Grove Unified School District. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us where you teach and what you teach.
I teach at Stone Lake Elementary School in Elk Grove, and I teach kindergarten. I've been there since the school opened. This will be our 11th year, and this will be my 21st year in kindergarten.
Oh, so all that time in one grade level?
Second grade prior to that. Second grade prior to that for a couple of years, yeah.
So what have you seen as the differences between kindergarten and second grade?
Well, when I started in second grade, I taught in a Title I school, which was what I'm teaching in kindergarten now is what I was teaching in second grade Title I back then. So quite a big difference.
So what's it like to be named a Teacher of the Year?
Very exciting, very honored, a big pinnacle of the career.
So you've taught for 21 years now, so kind of tell us some of the things that you
24.
think... 24, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry.
21 in kindergarten.
Didn't mean to shortchange you there.
That's all right.
So what are some of the changes you've seen in all those years in education for you?
I think one of the biggest changes that I've seen is a lot more emphasis placed on making it more academic earlier, especially in kindergarten, having been there for so long. It's not as much playing in the playhouse, playing with clay, learning shapes and colors. It's learning to read, learning to do addition and subtraction, and everything's kind of bumped up a little bit. You have to be really ready to go in kindergarten. It's not playing around anymore.
Mm-hmm. And so have you seen the students able to kind of catch on and pick up the work?
I have, and I think what I try to do is really blend that academic rigor with developmental appropriateness. So I still have a playhouse in my kindergarten and still allow that to happen, but also hold them to a really high academic standard, and also realize that not everybody is ready for that yet, but for those that are, they're challenged to go on, and for those that aren't, we move them along, at their own level, and they achieve what they can.
So some students respond differently depending on their age, because kindergarten is 4.5 to 5 years old.
Right.
So
big difference.
Some are ready and some aren't.
Right.
So what are some of the things you do to try to kind of motivate some of those kids who are kind of really having some difficulty in catching on?
I think in kindergarten you're really lucky that most kids are pretty motivated, and maybe overly motivated, a little bit. But for me, it's really trying to create intrinsic motivation with them. And there's a lot of, give yourself a high five, tell yourself good job, slap yourself on the back, and thumbs up, and that kind of thing. And just really creating that positive environment for them and making them want to achieve, want to go into the prize box and that kind of thing. And then there's always some who need a little bit more motivation. And for those, like I have a little girl from my class last year who couldn't learn her sight words, wasn't learning her sight words, and I got a hold of her mom and said, hey, I think we should be making a little bit more progress, and she said, yeah, she's having a hard time getting motivated, and I said, well, what does she love? She said, oh, sparkly rings. So I bought sparkly rings, I brought them and showed them to her. I said, Ryan, if you learn your sight words, the first list, I'm going to let you have any ring you want. 2 days later, she told me, I'm ready. And walked away with a big sparkly ring. So,
that's all it took?
Yeah, it's all it took. So I'm willing to go get some sparkly rings to get that out of them.
So you have to kind of find out what really kind of works for the individual student.
Right, you have to find out what they love and then dangle that carrot in front of them, and get them to grab it.
Do you find that with some students that, you're dealing with students sometimes from different backgrounds, and some may have difficulties at home or whatever. How do you kind of deal with that in the classroom?
I think, that's one of the challenges we face, is that we have so many diverse backgrounds, not only ethnically, but, who comes to the table with what knowledge and learning styles, varied learning styles and things. And I think for me, working with the parents, and getting the parents to buy into helping you to educate their child is the way that you get that child to achieve what you want. So really getting the parents on your side.
You're dealing also with a situation where the parents have multiple jobs, and there's daycare involved, or a grandparent taking care of the child, and the parents are awfully busy. Do you find it difficult to try to bring them into the tent and get them
That's funny you
involved?
say that, because last year, Wednesday, we called Grandma Day, because I had 3 grandmas that worked in my room on Wednesdays, and that was the day that all the other grandmas picked up. It just happened to work out that way, so we always said, oh, it's Grandma Wednesday, all the grandmas are here. So it was really a neat thing to have those grandmas be in the class. And I think when you're open and the grandma is treated as family as the mom and dad, then they're willing to do those things for you. And some of those grandmas were ethnically diverse and didn't have the language skills, but they still came in and helped and did everything.
Do you find there's a great difference in the child who comes into your classroom having gone to preschool as opposed to who hasn't?
For sure.
Talk about that.
Yes, yes. I think, anybody who comes to the table knowing a little bit of letters and sounds and being able to hold a pencil and cut with scissors has an advantage, over somebody that doesn't. And it's definitely easier to move forward in the curriculum than having to try to teach how to hold a pencil and how to make a line and how to make the letter of your name. If you already know that, you can just move at a much quicker pace. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen. You get the wide gamut of everybody. So that's when I have to break into small groups, and I do need a lot of parent help. So while they're working with the kids that already know how to write their name and perfecting it, I can be helping those who are struggling still to write their name.
But you can definitely see a difference.
I definitely, yes.
Do the students who have experience with preschool have more confidence?
Typically, but not always necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily. I think that they have a lot of understanding of what it's like to sit down and be in circle time and listen to the teacher and not be the one yelling out all the time and that kind of thing. So that's where they come in an advantage, is that they have classroom experience versus somebody who's just been taught at home or had nothing at home.
So what motivated you to be a teacher in the first place?
Oh gosh, several things really. Kind of my job experience as a teenager and a young adult, coupled with my own experiences, as a student myself. I had been a YMCA camp counselor, I had been a swim instructor, and then I had some positive and some negative experiences as a child that really made me realize how important a teacher is, and that motivated me to be a teacher.
Is there any one teacher in your background that you kind of think about when you're in the classroom teaching?
Always. 5th grade. Mr. Bettinger from the 5th grade was pivotal in my life and changed it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So you kind of look back and think of kind of the things that he did, and he's one of your inspirations.
My classroom, I feel, is kind of modeled after him, very much. It makes me teary to think of it.
Well, we certainly don't want to make you cry. So what do you say to those teachers or those potential teachers out there who are in school and thinking of going into education? What would you say to kind of inspire them to consider teaching as a career?
I think what I would tell them is that it's really the job it's the most rewarding thing you'll ever do. I think it's also one of the most challenging. And I think a lot of people think they can be a teacher and you're going to have summers off and you're going to have this, great time off. And I think if you don't have the passion for it, then it might not be the job for you, because, like I said, it's very rewarding, but it can be very challenging. It can be frustrating. And I also think that I would tell them your impact is more incredible than you'll ever imagine. So you have to care about that job.
So have you had past students from years ago come back to meet up with you? And
Yes, very much so.
it gets to be pretty emotional. And
It is really neat. My son's in high school now, so often I see the kids at high school and they'll say, "Do you remember me?" I said, "I know, it's Jimmy, right?" And they just talk about, they remember funny little things that we did, or "I remember that show." And last year I had a whole class of nothing but siblings.
Really?
My 20 children were siblings of students I had taught in the past. So all the older kids would come back and say, "Oh, I remember when we did that."
So when that one student comes back and says, "Thank you," that's got to be pretty gratifying.
Very much so. Very, very much so. It's huge. Like you said, you don't realize your impact is far outreaching, and like I'm still remembering a 5th grade teacher, many, many years later. So you don't realize the impact that you have on somebody.
And when the parents come back and say thank you too.
That's even almost better. That's huge, because they see how their child has changed and what you did for them.
And especially at the grade level you teach, parental involvement is really important.
Huge, yeah, and it's pretty high at that level. Sometimes they fade out later on, but in kindergarten they're all gung-ho and ready to help. And so they get to see, day to day what's going on in there. Who doesn't want to be a fly on the wall, in your child's room?
Especially if it's a first child in the classroom, the parent wants to be there.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, we congratulate you on the honor you've received.
Thank you.
We've been speaking with Sandy Glaeser, who is one of 2 Teachers of the Year for the Elk Grove Unified School District. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.